The belt. My experience with the belt has been limited to the bare buttocks, so I cannot compare its effects on the hands or through clothing. Even so, it left a lasting impression. The most memorable occasion came shortly after I had already received a caning. In a role-play scenario, I agreed to receive a belting as part of the punishment. Because the area had already been made extremely tender by the cane, every stroke of the belt seemed magnified. The sensation was very similar to that of the strap, but with a heavier impact and a deeper sting when it landed on already sensitive skin. What made the experience particularly difficult was the cumulative effect. The pain from each stroke was intensified by the bruising and tenderness that were already present. While I cannot offer comparisons for the belt on other parts of the body, on the bare buttocks it proved to be a formidable punishment, and one that could rival some of the more traditional implements. The tawse. I have only experienced the tawse once, and that was on the hands. Even with such limited experience, it left a strong impression. Initially, 1 or 2 strokes felt remarkably similar to receiving the strap. There was a sharp, stinging impact that spread quickly across the palms. However, as additional strokes were delivered, the experience began to resemble the cane more closely. Rather than remaining a simple sting, the pain developed into a deeper, heavier sensation that built steadily towards real agony. One factor that may have influenced the experience was the position of the hands. The grip and presentation required for the tawse were slightly different from those used for either the cane or strap. Nevertheless, the implement demonstrated why it earned such a fearsome reputation in schools, where it was once commonly used. The paddle. The paddle is perhaps the implement most commonly associated with school discipline in parts of the United States. I experienced it only once, and on that occasion it was delivered over the seat of my trousers. There is no doubt that the paddle can be painful. The force of the broad striking surface produces a solid, jarring impact that most people would have little desire to experience again. However, compared with the cane, belt, or strap, I found it considerably less severe when applied over clothing. The paddle seemed to rely more on blunt force than on the sharp sting associated with some other implements. While it certainly got my attention, it did not produce the same level of lingering pain or the intense build-up that characterizes a serious caning or strapping. I suspect that its effect on the bare buttocks would be much greater, but based on my own experience through clothing, it did not approach the severity of the harsher traditional punishments. The birch. The birch was something I had read about extensively before ever experiencing it. Many accounts described it as an implement whose effects gradually built over the course of a punishment. My own experience was quite different. I received the birch only once, and it immediately exceeded my expectations. From the very first stroke, the pain was extraordinary. Rather than requiring several strokes to become effective, the birch delivered an intense burning sensation instantly. In terms of sheer impact, a single stroke felt comparable to several strokes of a cane. What surprised me most was how rapidly the pain escalated. Each additional stroke seemed to multiply the discomfort, rather than simply add to it. The result was a punishment that combined sharpness, intensity, and rapid build-up in a way unlike anything else I had experienced. Of all the implements discussed here, the birch may have been the most intimidating and memorable. The slipper. The slipper occupies an interesting position among traditional disciplinary implements. In my experience, it was broadly similar to the paddle in terms of overall severity, although there were important differences. When applied through clothing, the slipper could certainly sting, but it was generally less severe than the cane, strap, belt, or birch. However, the situation changed noticeably when it was used on bare skin. Without the protection of clothing, the sting became significantly sharper and more immediate, making the punishment far more effective. Although it lacked the deep, escalating agony associated with some of the harsher implements, the slipper remained a respectable disciplinary tool and was capable of delivering a memorable punishment when used firmly. Final thoughts. Having experienced a range of traditional disciplinary implements, I found that no two were exactly alike. The cane, strap, belt, tawse, paddle, birch, and slipper each produced their own distinctive combination of sting, impact, and lingering discomfort. For sheer intensity, the birch stood out as the most severe and surprising. The cane and tawse shared a similar capacity for building pain over time, while the strap and belt delivered sharp, immediate punishment. The paddle and slipper, although certainly unpleasant, generally felt less severe in comparison, particularly when applied over clothing. Ultimately, the effectiveness and severity of any implement depend on numerous factors, including the force used, the area struck, and the condition of the recipient. Nevertheless, these experiences highlight the very different sensations that each traditional punishment method can produce.